Hi everyone, welcome back to another edition of the Athletes Hub. Back again with our weekly roundup, and joining me as always is Mr. Flexx.
Yes, sir. How we doing, guys?
Yeah, Mr. Flexx, good to see you again, bro. How's everything going?
Yeah, not too bad, man. Just excited to
Yeah.
discuss, this week's roundup.
Yeah, for sure. It's been a packed week. As everyone knows, the Premier League returned on the weekend. Just before we get into the Premier League, actually, I know the PFA Awards happened last night, and Mohammed Salah won his record third PFA Player of the Year award. And I just want to kind of touch on this quite quickly because, like Salah, I think since we all know he joined Chelsea after Basel and didn't quite work out for him at Chelsea, went away to AS Roma, joined Liverpool in 2017. And ever since he joined Liverpool, he's just been phenomenal. And I think him winning his third PFA Player of the Year award really highlights the impact he's had on the Premier League. And I think when you talk about Mohammed Salah, when we talk about the Premier League greats, the likes of Thierry Henry, Ronaldo, Rooney, Gerrard, Lampard, I think Salah's got to be in that conversation because of how consistent he's been. If you're talking about the modern day pro, not just his stats, but the way he looks after himself, how consistent he's been. We do highlight how Ronaldo and Messi were so consistent at their peak in La Liga. And if you look at Salah's stats, you look at his performances in the last 8 years, there's been nobody better than him, I'd say, to be honest, in terms of consistency, what he's produced, goals, assists. So when we talk about the Premier League greats, like where do you rank him on that list?
Well, he's definitely up there. I mean, he's easily in the top 10 for the Premier League. I think very comfortably. His consistency, in everything he does, even at the age he's at now, it's definitely Ronaldo-like, and to be fair, I feel like he can probably keep going until he actually meets Alan Shearer's record, if only they will have him, so yeah, he's been phenomenal, and I don't think anyone kind of expected it from when he joined Liverpool, and he's been a standout, the best right winger in the league for well over 3-4 years, quite easily.
Yeah, I agree. I think you look at his position again. He's a professional. He's, I guess, predominantly a wide player, isn't he? He plays off the right hand side. And we talk about the numbers. You mentioned Alan Shearer's record. For a wide player to potentially break that record would be spectacular, in my opinion, because there's talk about Harry Kane trying to reach that record. But I think Salah to come into the Premier League after he spent at Chelsea and really hit another gear. Even when Jurgen Klopp left last season, there was doubt about is he going to stay at the football club? Is he going to reproduce that form? But he's actually taken another level. 33 years old now. You could probably argue that he's actually getting better with age. And that just comes down to the way he looks after himself. Again, he's a great professional, consistent as you like. Just if you're talking about wide players in the Premier League, I don't think there's been any better than him in the last probably 10 years. You might talk about Hazard in there as well, maybe a Heung-min Son. But we talk about numbers and contributions towards goals. Salah is in a league of his own, really. That's clear to see.
No, he is. I mean, considering, 187 goals and he's only 67 goals behind Shearer's record, if he has another phenomenal season this year and next year, he would literally be in touching distance of grips in that record, and so let's see, hopefully he stays fit, hopefully he stays consistent, and then we can see someone of his caliber, replace Shearer for that record. And then I guess once you do that, you're definitely now in that realm of conversation as is he the best ever goal scoring machine the Premier League has ever seen. Stats wise, yes. The eye test, maybe others would say something different, but yeah.
Nah, I think if he breaks the record, it doesn't come down to eye test. I think, if he breaks the record, he is for sure the greatest goal scorer machine in the Premier League history. That's a fact. For you to beat that record of Alan Shearer's, and Alan Shearer, was he pretty on the eye? I'd probably say not, but he knew where the back of the net was. He was prolific for a number of years at Blackburn, then to Newcastle.
Yeah.
So if Salah breaks it again as a wide forward, I think that's even more spectacular. So listen, if he breaks or not, there's no debate. He is the greatest goal scorer in Premier League history. That's a fact. Whether it comes down to the eye test or not, that comes down to opinion. But if we talk about facts, he is the greatest if he does break it. But again, that remains to be seen. But yeah, like I mentioned at the top of the show, guys, Premier League returns during the weekend. A lot of interesting results, obviously Arsenal winning at Old Trafford, Tottenham having a very good convincing start against Burnley at home and in 3-0. Man City rampant against Wolves away from home. Chelsea, being held to a draw by Crystal Palace. I think one of the results that kind of really caught my eye out was Sunderland against West Ham. Sunderland newly promoted after a number of years away in the Championship. Really, I don't know, West Ham were poor in the game. And after the game, a lot of West Ham fans were quite concerned about their chances of relegation this season. People felt as if relegation is a real possibility this year. Listen, so it's only game one. But if you look at West Ham's form towards the end of last season, there was still some concern that after Lopetegui was sacked, Graham Potter came in, and there wasn't really much change in their fortunes. And obviously, losing 3-0 away from home against a newly promoted side is not the best start, to be honest. When you look at West Ham, do you think they're in relegation trouble? Because, again, you look on paper, they've got decent players. But, it's just not really worked out. Do you think they could be relegated this season?
Yeah, I mean, it's it's definitely possible. They haven't been, in the best run of form, even near the end of last season. They finished 14th, and their form chart in their last 5 games was, losing, drawing, winning, losing, that type of thing. It makes me wonder, because I thought Graham Potter coming in, that would uplift the team, make things better. But it seems to have had, a somewhat opposite or sideways effect to the team. So for me, I have them down as a team that could go. I think it's definitely possible and not out of reach. I feel the same about Wolves as well. Although Wolves do have a good manager, but it will be a bit tricky, not having your best player at the club anymore and that type of thing. And same for West Ham, they've lost Kudus, what I'm saying, and they can't seem to find goals anywhere, in that team except for Gerard Bowen, So for me, it's a tricky one. I don't know how they can fix that. I don't know what really is going on over there, but yeah, it's not looking good. Even after one game.
It's not looking good. I think, when you look at Graham Potter, there's been a lot of talk about his managerial ability and whether he's a good coach or not. He was at your club, Chelsea, for not a very long time. But again, he built up a really good reputation as a coach of Brighton, really began that cycle of good football, playing out from the back. What's your thoughts on him? Because I think I went to watch West Ham a few times when Moyes was in charge, and a lot of the fans were frustrated with the style of football. It was very, regressive. There wasn't many, it wasn't much in terms of attacking play. There was at times in the game, but it wasn't a free throw-in, type of football that they wanted to see. But with David Moyes' teams, you knew what you were going to get. It was going to be very solid defensively, and with the likes of Kudus, Bowen, Antonio, knew that you were going to get, a threat as a counter-attack, and you knew they're going to be very well structured. Whereas with Lopetegui, when he came in, it seemed like there was either, I don't know, it was just a bit all over the place. And I think Potter coming, trying to emphasize his style of football, which is, again, it's very progressive, it's very possession-based. Maybe the teams find it difficult to adjust to that after playing for so long underneath David Moyes. So what's your thoughts on Potter? Do you feel like, he's probably the guy to take them forward? I mean, again, being at Chelsea for a couple of months, you probably saw him firsthand.
I think it's definitely more closer to his level, but at this point, I feel like maybe West Ham is in a bit of an enigma of a club, right? And a manager that suits West Ham is not the manager the fans want, and it's not the football the fans want. And so it's a bit difficult, for a manager to come in and change all of these things. So for me, I feel like, a pragmatic manager like Moyes is everything West Ham needs. And they've had, they've won a trophy with them. They've had a really good league finish with that type of manager. But every time they've gone to step away from pragmatism into free-flowing football that's pleasing on the eye, etc., it just hasn't worked out. So I don't know what you're going to get with Graham Potter. I mean, from last season, it wasn't really good. First game of the season, there's no way you should go to Sunderland and get beat 3-0, and they've got a game against Chelsea on Friday. that's going to be a challenging one as well. So if you lose those 2 games, what does that say about your season and where? Well, not even your season just started, but what does it say? Have you already lost the dressing room at that point? With those first 2 games, so it's tricky. Paqueta wants out. He's beat his charges, so that's a player that could be on the move, whether it's this window or the next. The team is just it's not what we thought it would be.
Yeah, I think obviously Antonio not having his contract renewed as well. He's as a goal threat. It's been let go now, and I think you're right. I think the game against Chelsea on Friday is a key one because if you think about it, we've got Sunderland against Burnley on Saturday. So if Sunderland win that one, already they've got a bit of a boost there. They've won at home, and obviously if they go away and beat Burnley, then that's a great start for Sunderland. And if West Ham lose against Chelsea, then again that's a terrible start because already you're chasing the teams above you. So it's a key game on Friday. But I don't think their season will be defined against games against Chelsea, the likes of them. I think it will be against teams in and around them, like Sunderland, Burnley, Wolves. You mentioned as well, teams like that. They've got to get points in. But yeah, I think West Ham season, it remains to be seen how they get on. But in terms of other teams during the weekend that impressed you, who kind of stood out to you? I was really impressed with Spurs actually against Burnley. I thought we saw a different Spurs. I thought we saw a very direct Spurs, a very structured Spurs. And I think Kudus is going to be, I think he's a great addition to the team because I think Thomas Frank is very direct, likes to get the ball in the box. And on Saturday, we saw Kudus at his very best, beating players, beating the wing backs and getting the ball into the box. And obviously, with Charlison being on the end of those chances. So what teams kind of impressed you throughout the weekend?
For me, I would say Sunderland. that definitely impressed me because I didn't expect for them to, beat West Ham 3-0. Didn't see that coming. So that definitely impressed myself. Of course, Tottenham did good, but again, it is Burnley, so not necessarily impressive because you did what you should do. Then you got Nottingham Forest, and I thought that result was pretty good. And then as well, Leeds also beating Everton, even though it was a penalty. I feel like that's a very good result, and it's a very good strong way to start the season. So I would say I'm impressed by those type of teams that like Sunderland, Leeds. They've come up and they've won their opening game. They've set their
also,
stall.
You mentioned how teams like Tottenham, they should have, they're doing what they're meant to do. But we're looking at the likes of Burnley, who have just come up from the Championship. Even Burnley had a very good defensive record last season in the Championship. But you look at the likes of Forest beating Brentford. Brentford are one of the favourites to go down this season. Obviously, they've got Keith Andrews as the manager now. They've lost, some of their key players and obviously their manager. And then obviously Everton losing to Leeds. Everton had a bit of a bounce when Moyes came in last season, but again, they weren't in the best position when he joined the football club. So they're beating teams that have kind of struggled as well, or have just been newly promoted. So I feel like this season we're going to see the likes of Brentford, Wolves, West Ham, along with the newly promoted sides. I feel like there's going to be a bit of a mix because recently the teams that have just been promoted have also gone down straight afterwards. But I feel like we might see a bit of a mix up this season because some of the clubs like West Ham and Brentford seem like they might struggle this year. So it'll be interesting to see how they get on. Look at the upcoming games for this weekend. We've got a few tasty ones. We've got Man City and Tottenham, and we've also got the Monday game, Newcastle and Liverpool. Now, the Newcastle-Liverpool game is going to be quite interesting because of all the transfer talks around Alexander Isak. I watched Newcastle against Villa, actually, and I thought they were good in the first half in particular. I just felt they were missing that striker. I think Anthony Gordon's not a striker. He's a makeshift striker. But again, Gordon plays well when he's playing off the right or left. So that will be an interesting game. I mean, when you look at Newcastle this season, without a striker, what do you think they can achieve this season?
It's tricky because they need one. They don't have anyone who can remotely play a false nine or do a standing job. I remember Gordon had a header which he should have hit the target with, and he totally fluffed it, and that's just simply because he's never the guy who's in the box to have to header the ball. So without a striker, even like Johan Wieser, like that's someone they should actually just pay the money and go and get. That would help. So it's tricky. I feel they definitely need to sort that bit out. reintegrate Isak, even though we all heard about the statement that came out yesterday and so on and so on. But, this is detrimental. This is the difference between finishing in European positions and finishing outside of European positions, especially when you had a striker that did 20 plus goals. You can't replace that. You just can't replace that. So, they need to sort that out and sort that out very fast. Because if Isak was playing last weekend, they win that game.
Yeah, that's true. I think you're right. It's one player can make that massive difference to a team pushing for Europe or pushing to stay in those positions. I think talking about, before we go on to sort of Alexander Isak and Wissa, actually, who have been in the news for, I guess, the transfer speculation. Watching Arsenal against United on Sunday, what was your thoughts? Because I watched the game and we spoke about Man United before, and we spoke about the goalkeeper situation last time around. I felt United actually looked quite good in spells against Arsenal. And I felt as if Cunha was outstanding. I thought the way he picks up the ball, the way he drives with it. I thought Mbeumo was very good as well. I think he'd be a key player in his team. I like him already. And even Mason Mount. I feel like we saw patterns of play for the first time in a while. And I felt as if, of course, we didn't create too many chances, but it looked like a different team. And I feel like if they can get the glue in the middle, which would be a midfielder, then I don't think United would be too far away of causing teams problems this season. What was your thoughts? Obviously, Gyökeres made his Premier League debut for Arsenal. What was your thoughts on the game on Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, two drunk men fighting. That's what it looked like on the football.
So you're saying Arsenal are drunk then?
I mean, it didn't look good, did it? What I mean?
Yeah, no. It's the first game, but yeah, you probably would listen. You probably look. United are still in that transition phase where they're still trying to find their feet. You might have felt Arsenal essentially the same 11 as last year, except with Zubimendi and obviously Gyökeres. But it's the same team as last season, isn't it? So you'd probably think that they're in a better position to kick on and maybe show a better performance. But yeah, two drunk men fighting is a funny analogy, to be fair, but I'll let you carry on.
Yeah, I mean, that's just what it looked like to me, because it just wasn't pretty football and what I expected to see on the field, right? But I mean, all the same, like you said, look, it's the first game of the season. A 1-0 defeat at home is not welcome, of course, but it wasn't 2-0, it wasn't 3-0. And to be fair, if Arsenal didn't have the type of defense and goalkeeper that they do have, United on another day win that game. If United were playing probably any other team besides Arsenal and Liverpool, they probably win that game, because the goalkeeper made some outstanding saves. The defense, were as solid as they could ever be. And, there were great chances that were created, so there's something positive to take out of the game by way of, okay, look, chances are being created, and the goal that was conceded was a goalkeeper mistake. And if you remember, we had that conversation last week about goalkeepers and what are United teaching their goalkeepers, Again, it's come up again. So like I said, is this Onana? Is it Bayindir? Like, it seems like it doesn't matter who's in goal, those mistakes, I feel like that's coming from the coaching and places from other places.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like there's obviously been issues with both keepers at the football club, and I think it's clear that neither keeper is going to be a nailed-on number one. I think that's clear to see, because I don't think either of them are convincing, and particularly in that scenario where it's a corner kick, you're talking about the coaching, but you're expecting a goalkeeper to, again, take initiative in that position and really take control of his box, if that makes sense. I don't think the coaches will, tell their goalkeepers to be weaker against opposition in their box. You've got to come out and command that position. You're allowed to be physical. You're allowed to jump in the end and punch the ball away. So you've got to really take control of that situation. And I feel like the goalkeeper situation in United, again, I don't think either Onana or Bayindir are going to be nailed on number ones. And it kind of reminds me of when De Gea and Anders Lindegaard were being switched around as goalkeepers under Ferguson. And even when they had Tim Howard and Roy Carroll at one point, until you get that Van der Sar in goal, you're not going to be, it's not going to be comfortable for United. I think we're still going to see goals like this, not just from the keeper situation, but again, I think United, as good as they looked on the weekend, I still feel that they'll give you chances in games. And teams like Arsenal, who are good defensively and who are clinical and take their chances, will punish United. So until I feel as if the goalkeeper situation gets sorted out, maybe talking about maybe another centre-back or maybe a midfield player, I still feel United are going to give you these type of chances. But I stick to what I said last week. I feel like the goalkeeping errors that we've seen are goalkeeping errors. I don't feel as if it comes down to coaching. I feel it comes down to attributes and it comes down to confidence. And some of these players just haven't grasped, particularly Onana. I've watched him for 2 years. And yes, at times he's done well in games, but we want someone who can kind of, ooze that confidence throughout the rest of the team. And I don't think either keeper so far does that. And I feel until we get a goalkeeper who can really bring that confidence, I feel like United will struggle and concede these type of goals, to be honest.
Fair. That's fair.
Yeah, cool. Hopefully everyone agrees with me in the comments, by the way. Well, yeah, listen, to finish up, you mentioned before the statement with Alexander Isak. He didn't attend the PFA Awards last night because of the situation at Newcastle and him wanting to push his move to Liverpool. He mentioned in the statement, actually, that he was promised something by the club. And the reason why he's kind of behaved the way he's behaved is because the club promised him a move and they've obviously not stuck to their word. What was your thoughts on that statement? Because I felt as if it was quite surprising because, listen, players come out, they have a say, but they're not as aggressive as that. They're not as direct as that. And personally, I feel like after that statement coming out, I don't think both sides can reconcile. I know we spoke about before, you mentioned that, listen, if he scores a few goals, the fans will get back on his side and he'll be welcomed back. But I feel like with that statement, you're essentially accusing the club of lying to you. And you mentioned there's no trust there. So if they've lied to you and there's no trust there, I don't see how that relationship really gets reconciled and he actually comes back into the fold at Newcastle. Now, what's your thoughts on that? Can this be salvaged in a way, basically?
Anything is salvageable with money. You know what I'm saying? If the window closes, what are you going to do? Not play? We're going to give you a little bit more money. We're going to top up your thing. We're not going to add any more years to it. We're just going to give you a very nice bag and say, get on the pitch. Do what you're supposed to do, and then you can be out there in the summer. And that's what will probably happen. I feel like Newcastle may be stalling out the window and just making things a bit difficult just so that he stays. Because at the end of the day, contractually, what are you going to do? If such agreement was made, why wasn't it on paper? You don't make those type of agreements and have a handshake at the end of it because you can't trust anybody. All of these agreements need to be on paper. That's why we have release clauses and things like that. You don't see Eze kicking up a fuss or whatever the case is because there's release clauses, and if you want the boy, pay the release clause. Unlike the Gibbs White thing, which we saw, where there was a release clause and, they triggered it, but it still didn't go through. And, you had Marinakis standing there like Suge Knight, you know what I'm saying?
He says to him, listen, you didn't have to come, Marinakis didn't have to come and tell Gibbs White he's staying. You just know he's staying now. No, I don't see many owners in post-match interviews, to be honest. I don't see that happen a lot. So the fact that Marinakis was there and is so hands-on as an owner just tells you that he's not an owner to be pushed about, to be fair.
That's right, and he's not looking to be pushed about. So I feel like, look, will it be resolved long-term? No. Short-term? Yes. Can we come to an understanding for the short term between now and January, between now and July next year? Yes. That can happen. Like I said, for the fans, they're going to boo you in the first few games, whatever. But if you go and score a brace in the first game and a hat-trick in the next game, I mean, all is forgiven. You're going to start singing your name. They're not going to boo you, so no
True,
big
I
deal.
think you're right. I mean, I think just to sort of close off here now, I agree. I think when it comes to football and loyalty and promises, we all know, we've seen it many times that, things don't always go to plan. But it's the way that, and I mentioned this in a previous episode, it's the way that you deal with it. You mentioned Eze in there, not kicking up a fuss. Even Mark Gahey, he probably wants to go to Liverpool as well. But, he's going to remain loyal to Crystal Palace. He's going to do his duty as the captain there, help them play games. And I always feel as if you don't get your move, I always feel like your performances on the pitch do the talking for you. So if you remain, professional, you crack on with your game, if Liverpool are going to sign you, they'll sign you eventually. So whether it's this summer, whether it's January, whether it's next summer, if the club is serious about bringing you into the fold, they will sign you. 100%. But I just feel as if the way that he's gone about it with all these statements, not attending the awards last night, not training with Newcastle, it's surprising because I didn't think his character would be like that. But again, football is not just one person making decisions. He's probably got an entourage of people behind him, giving him different advice of what to do and how to handle it. I don't think in this situation, I don't think he's handled himself well. But is it too late for it to turn around? I think long term, yes, because I can't see it reconciling based on his statement and what he's come out with and what he's done. But if I'm Newcastle, I'm trying to maybe go for Nico Jackson on a loan basis, try and sign Rissa, just try and get a striker in, and then just solve this problem. I don't think we're going to see the 150 million valuation met by Liverpool. I feel like they might come down to maybe 120 or even 100. I feel like for Newcastle, they will want to just get the deal done, get as much as they can, because I feel like the long-term effects of having an unhappy player in there will be more damaging as to not receiving the full valuation for the player, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So by him at the football club being unhappy, disrupting all proceedings, every press conference, Eddie Howe's having to answer questions about Isak, I think that's probably more damaging than maybe Newcastle missing out on 30 or 40 million pounds to sell him. So I feel like that will eventually be done, whether it's now or whether it's in January. I think it needs to be resolved. But listen, the football season's begun. Already we're talking about all these different topics. It's been another good conversation. Stay Flexx. And again, guys, let us know in the comments what you think about our opinions. Did your team win in the weekend? What do you make of the Isak situation? Obviously, Johan Wissa as well. He's deleted all his Brentford references on his social media and all this other stuff. So listen, players are kicking up a fuss now. What's your thoughts on all of that? Again, don't forget, guys, we've got TikTok now. So follow us on TikTok, Instagram as always. Subscribe on YouTube. And again, listen, guys, let us know in the comments what your thoughts are. We like interaction with you guys in the comments. We'd like to hear your thoughts. So don't forget to do that. Mr. Flexx, until next week.
Until next week,
as always, bro.
It's been as good as always. And guys, please like the videos. That really does help on the YouTube algorithm, and subscribe. We're on the road to 100 subscribers. I think we're like 79 or something like that. So yeah, please subscribe, help us get to 100. And yeah, man, enjoy the weekend, enjoy your fantasy Premier Leagues and all these things, you know what I'm saying? And yeah, man, we'll touch base again next week.
Have you got a fantasy league yourself, Rex?
Nope. Do you know why? I don't do it because I just can't stick with it. I stick with it for the first couple of weeks and then I just fall off. So I don't even bother with it anymore, to be honest.
Yeah, I've retired for the last 4 or 5 years now. I've retired from FPL. It's too much stress. You don't enjoy the games as much. So, but listen, guys, if you guys have got your FPL teams, like share them with us in the comments. See you guys are getting on. Hopefully, this time next week, United beat Fulham and Chelsea lose against West Ham.
Yes. Let's see it. Let's see. Let's see how that goes. All right.
Listen, thanks. Be good as always, and we'll catch up next week.
Cheers.
See you, bro.
See ya.